Hi everyone! How's everyone doing today? Hey! Good to be here. Not much. I'm excited to do this stream. Yeah, I am too. This will be fun. Pretty chill day. Yeah, for me as well. Actually, part one, this is part one of the stream. Tetris was fun the last time I played with you all. That was a good time. So part one of the stream didn't actually happen 2 days ago. I injured my foot, and so I've been on crutches. But I'm getting back into it, and I've been able to readjust my workstation to where I can elevate my foot while doing this. So I think this is going to work out. But I'm glad to be on stream with you all today. And this is actually part one of the stream. So you all did not miss anything. We're right on par and ready to roll. Sure, yeah, absolutely. I can lower this background music. It's always hard to tell if it's like louder than I am or a good background volume. What do y'all think of that? Cool. So if you have not already, I'm assuming that if you're here, you either registered for Global Hack Week or for this event specifically. But if you would, you could go ahead and check in to the event itself right here, and I will drop the link in chat, and we will get started in a few minutes. So for this, we will be doing a little bit of coding along. Yes, I can lower it a little bit more. Is that better? Awesome, great. Okay. So have any of y'all in here built a password generator before? I'm excited to do this with you all. All right. Cool. share this. Okay, so for those of y'all who are new here or are meeting me for the first time, I'm Alina. I'm a coach here at MLH. And yes, we will be building a password generator today. So my background is in computer engineering. I actually just graduated this past May, and I've been with MLH for the past year at hackathons in person. I do online hackathons, and then you'll see me on stream for Global Hack Week and for mini events and things like that for Global Hack Week as well. So for those of y'all who I've met before, hey, it's good to be here. It's good to have you back on stream. And for those of you who are new to the community, I'm glad that you're here and hope that you're enjoying your first Global Hack Week and hope that you find a good community here to be a part of. And yeah, let's get started. So today we will be talking about creating better passwords. So passwords are really your first line of protection against any kind of attack. So passwords are really important. We use them for all sorts of things. And today we'll be talking about how we can build better passwords, the types of features a good password has, and how to keep ourselves safe when we build passwords. Let me take this banner off because we are starting. Okay, so a secure credential is one that is easy for you to remember, but that is hard for other people to guess, right? So we want to build passwords that are going to be memorable to you, but not something that other people can quickly guess. So some of the things that we'll go over today, we'll go over just the fundamentals of what password security looks like, what kind of characteristics a good password has, what kind of characteristics it doesn't have. And then we'll go into, if you all are familiar with the XKCD password comic, or just the XKCD comic in general. It's a comic that it is popular in the STEM community, I should say. They do nerdy informational comics, and I'm certainly a fan, but this whole idea of building a password generator is based on a comic that they did, and we'll go over that comic a little bit and what their methodology is for that. And then we will actually build a password generator based on that comic. Yeah, I am certainly a fan of XKCD, and I'm glad to hear that other people are too. So then, yeah, we'll go into building the password generator. It'll be, I have a basic thing online for us already that we can, on GitHub, that we can start off with, and then we'll add some functionality and things like that. And throughout that process, if any questions come up, or really just throughout this whole presentation, any questions come up, we can definitely talk about those and get into all that good stuff. But we'll reserve some time in the end for questions, and that'll be what we plan to do today. Great. Hi. All right. Yes. Okay. So let me actually share the GitHub link with you all. I think that's great. And you can follow along with these slides. So let's see. Hi, Ayush. Rico. And you can honestly go ahead and clone that right now and set up your environment if you'd like. Actually, one thing I will have to do is I will have to make it public. Let me go ahead and do that right now. Awesome. So that is public now. Go ahead and check again because I had to make that repo public. So try now. And that should be able to work. Yep, I resent it. It is right there. Okay, awesome. That's great. So I do have a link in there in the README for the Google Docs slides that I'm going through right now. So you can follow along with the slides on there. Okay, great. Good to know that it's working. It's public now. So you all should be able to access it. So in this, you can go ahead and clone the repo and have that set up as you would like in your environment. So this is assuming that you're able to set up the environment. But it should be pretty easy. Just clone the repo. And right now, it's really just a very basic password generator file that I've created for us to generate the password. And then we'll add some personal functionality to it and stuff. So yeah, and then you can obviously follow along with this presentation. We are on slide 2 right now. Great. I'm glad that it works for you all. And yeah, let's get going. Okay, so a few things. Yes, this is the part 1 of the password generator stream. So we'll talk about the importance of unique passwords. So obviously, when you're building passwords, you want to have passwords that are not reused. So don't have the same password for your email and for the same password that you use for school, that you use for any sort of service that you're using online, maybe for, if you're accessing your bank accounts online or anything like that. Try not to have the same passwords, or even if you can avoid it, same elements of the passwords, because really if someone knows one of your passwords, right, they're going to be say that a site that you're using is not very secure and someone's able to access that password. If it's not a unique password, or if it's a password you reuse 10 times, it's obviously going to be vulnerable to be able to be hacked, and you're making all of your accounts vulnerable by using passwords that are too alike or similar, or the same. You could consider using multi-factor authentication. So, when you're logging into something, make sure that, say you're logging into your email or on Discord or something like that. If you have multi-factor authentication, you can use other devices or other accounts that would have unique passwords to verify that you're actually who you say you are. And so that if someone has a password to one of your accounts, that doesn't mean they can access other devices or other websites or services to authenticate across those various platforms. And with passwords in general, and computer security, obviously education is awareness. You want to be aware that the passwords that you're using are actually strong passwords, and education also in the sense that don't enter your password into an insecure site. Try not to include your passwords. Don't write them down in a Google Doc where they might be vulnerable. So just keep an eye out for any services online that you might be using that look a little suspicious, and know that if you are, if you're being haphazardly about where you're putting your passwords and how you're sharing them across your services, that you're also updating them regularly and you're just using best practices. Any questions so far? What are some ideas that you all have for password security? How do you currently keep your password secure? Do you use maybe something like LastPass that keeps track of your passwords, so that you can use a password manager like LastPass. Yes. And I think that's a really great tool because you don't have to remember all of your passwords. You can remember one good password, or maybe a couple of good passwords, but also make sure you're creating passwords that can be memorable to you, but are still strong passwords that are not memorable for other people. Write it down. Where do you write it down? Where do you write your passwords down, Lights 13? Yeah, so password generators can also generate random passwords for you and save them, and that's great. You use forget password. I guess that could be a method to make sure you're updating your passwords regularly. Okay, so some of y'all make a pattern that you remember and change it on the basis of the app that you log into. So yes, something to consider though is that password then unique? Or is it patternized to the point where it could potentially be, if someone knows one of your passwords, can they sort of unlock the pattern of some of your other passwords? Maybe that's a consideration to have. Maybe that's something you're including in your passwords when you're making it. And you're saying, okay, I've accounted for, these potential patterns that someone could use to guess my password. Because I do think that oftentimes people will create passwords with maybe, maybe they use a similar word, but they change maybe this is a good stream to do because if you are making passwords that are really basic or include your first name, last name, your birthday, or anything like that, those could be extremely easy to guess. Like if you're saying, say your password is password 123 for Instagram, and you say password 123 IG or password 123 FB. If someone knows that your password for IG is password 123 IG, they can go and trace that into other applications and patternize it in that sort of way and crack your codes, right? So you want to make it so that it's not a very easy password to guess in the first place, but it's also not patternized in such a way that it can be used to unlock your passwords across multiple services. Yeah. This is a good idea to make your own generator to store your passwords. I think that's great. And it sounds like some of y'all have been using the same sort of passwords for a very long time. So maybe that's something, maybe this will encourage you all to create passwords that aren't reused as often, if at all, preferably if at all, and that are also things that, aren't very guessable. So education is awareness, right? So using similar passwords or just changing a small pattern is oftentimes not going to be sufficient if someone is trying to get into your account or knows one of your passwords. So you are leaving your accounts to be vulnerable to attacks and to hackers that might have those types of intentions. It's really not that hard for computers to guess a lot of passwords, and it's surprising how often some passwords are used. Even if you think you've come up with something unique. All right. So what are some characteristics of strong passwords? Strong passwords are going to have length and complexity. So when we talk about length, we mean... So there's a question. Is there some way that someone knows my pattern, even if I haven't shared it to anyone or saved the pattern on Google or somewhere? I think the way I think about this question is maybe someone doesn't really necessarily know your pattern, but if they can guess your pattern, say that you have uh, say that you have a password on a website that is not very secure, and somehow someone gets access to that password. If you're using a password like, password IG, password Gmail, password Facebook, um, right, that's a very easy pattern that you might be surprised that a lot of people could use. So those are things that when people are, if hackers are trying to, um, you know, hack into your, if they're trying to get into your accounts, they are going to think of those possibilities because they've been around enough people, or they've seen enough people make passwords like that. So those are, though you might think that your patterns are unique and they're novel, they might not be, because they might be passwords, or patterns that are actually common that other people use. hmm Um, yeah. Cool. Okay, so using a variety of characters, I think a character that oftentimes people don't think about in passwords, and I actually didn't think about for a while as well, is are spaces. People, oftentimes you can use spaces in your passwords, and oftentimes people don't think about using spaces in their passwords. So I think that's actually a really good, one to include, to have that sort of, variety. Yeah. Yes, and no common words, no things that are, short. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, trying to avoid things that other people are thinking of. And uh, so we want to have, a variety of characters so that you can build this, like, a, a sense of complexity into the passwords. It really does go hand in hand with the length and complexity. Try to use characters, like, if you have an S, you can substitute a 5 or something like that, and that adds a layer of complexity to some of the words and things that you might be using for your passwords. And then obviously avoid common patterns. We actually talked about one. Um, uh, yeah, so a lot of sites will accept password as your password, and I see that in the comment there, in the comment section there. They will accept password as a password, but that's not a very good password. I'm just saying. I mean, don't take it from me, but I don't think that's a very good password, because a lot of people are probably along the lines of thinking that password seems like a fun and easy password. Now, right, for the things that you have a password for, if you think about it, the reason you're probably creating a password for anything, for any kind of website or service that you're using, is because you want to maintain a level of security with those services. Now, if you're, using password, that's obviously not very secure. If you're using password 123, that's also not very secure, and that's also a common pattern. So also the thing that we talked about with using IG or Facebook or something like that at the end of your passwords, that's actually very common. And people, I know you might think, oh, I'm the first person that thought of this, but if you're thinking about it, chances are someone else has already had that idea too. So also something like, using your birthday, that's information that could be accessible in other places, right? So if someone really wanted to, they could, with all the information that we have on the internet, if someone really had the intention to, they could maybe find out your birthday through a lot of other platforms, whether that's, on your social medias, or whether that's, yeah, just social media, Facebook. Facebook has, a way for you to have your birthdays. LinkedIn, you know, also zip codes are very common. So if you've used zip codes in your passwords, people can trace back maybe places you've lived, or things like that. So if someone has the intention to, those are common patterns that are worth avoiding. Also, you want to create passwords that are memorable to you. Yes, using a password manager is great, and you can do that, but it doesn't hurt to have passwords that you can memorize and be able to use on different platforms. Now, granted, if you're going to have 50 different passwords, it's hard to memorize all of them. But there might be a few platforms that you use kind of regularly, and you could create memorable passwords for those, right? You could create memorable but strong passwords, and memorable for you but not for other people. So maybe think of a memory or something that you have as a kid. Maybe you had, you know, maybe you have a story related to a dog that was messy with their treats, and maybe you gave them a red treat or something once. This reminds me of a photo I saw a few days ago of a friend's dog. They had given the dog a treat. It was a bone with like red icing on it, and the dog had like bit or licked off the icing. And it was a white dog that had like really nice fur, and it had like red fur all over its mouth, over its snout, and it looked like the dog had wore lipstick, and the dog's name was Zuzu. So maybe something like Zuzu likes to wear icing like red lipstick, or something along the lines of that. That would be memorable to me, but maybe not something that someone else would think of, right? So it would be nonsensical to someone else who's like, who's Zuzu? Why red lipstick? Why icing and treats, right? But it refers to a memory that I have, so I can remember that. And then, yes, explore password managers. We talked about this. Password managers are a great way for you to not have to build or create and remember all of your passwords, right? You can have a password that is strong, with a variety of characters, with varied patterns, and you can just include it into a password manager and use it as needed. The one challenge with a password manager might be that, if you're logging on through a new device or whatever, you might have to log on to the password manager and make sure you have the password manager on all your devices to access the different platforms that you're using. So they definitely can be useful, but it could also be an added step, right? So if it's a password that you're using very regularly, then it's a good idea to have it be something that you can remember. How do you strength check your password patterns? So we will talk about strength checking passwords for patterns, or see how predictable they are. We will talk about that in just a moment. So we're going to talk about the XKCD password methodology, and it was good to hear that some of you all know about the comic. Also, someone's put a link in the chat, passwordmonster.com. I've never heard of that, but I'm actually going to look it up right now because I'm curious. So what is this? Oh, okay. So it's basically a website that tells you how strong a password is. I'm actually going to try this. Does anyone have an example of something? I'm actually going to try. Okay. Well, the password I just included would take 10 million years to crack. I'm curious to see how they calculate this, but that is really cool. I like that. That's from, okay, so we'll use Zuzu. I'm sure Zuzu would be very happy that we're talking about her. Lipstick. That would take 2 million years to get, according to passwordmonster.com. That's awesome. Cool. And that's using lowercase, uppercase numbers, and no symbols. What if we were to add a symbol into that? Let's see, what's a good symbol to add? We'll add, if we were to add one more symbol into that, it would take 12 trillion years. according to Password Monster, to guess that password. And all I did was I replaced the I with a with an asterisk. Thank you. That's a really good tool. So yeah, definitely passwordmonster.com. I didn't know about that. That's a great way to check the security of your passwords. That's good. So according to Randall Munroe, he writes the XKCD comics. This is a quote by him. Password 1 is the most popular password, followed closely by password 2. And those two together will cover 20% of all passwords. That was very surprising to me to learn. I'm actually going to put in password 1 into Password Monster, and it takes 0 seconds to crack that password. Same thing with password 2, it takes 0.01 seconds to guess that password. Okay, if we were to misspell that, if we were to say password ed 1, it takes 6 minutes. So even a simple password like that that's used so frequently, even if it's misspelled, it's still a really easy password, a really easy pattern for people to guess. That's a common word with a very easy, yes, it's surprising that it's common, but it's also maybe people are also thinking, oh, not a lot of people are actually going to guess that. But the fact that someone did think of that means that someone else is also thinking of it, and a hacker might check that first, right? So those are very easy passwords to guess. But yeah, it is very surprising to me. So you're definitely right that it's surprising that those passwords are that common, because it seems kind of like a no-brainer that those aren't great passwords to use. But education is awareness, and so just knowing that those aren't good passwords is very important. And yes, most of the human minds are saying, yes, we have novel ideas and things like that, but they're actually very rare. A lot of our ideas often come from ideas that other people have, and so if you think you're coming up with something very clever, you may or may not be. Right? Somebody else might have already thought of that same idea and said, oh, I think this is clever. I think this is a clever password. And so, yeah, so maybe Lights 13, if you think that most of your passwords are easy to crack in less than 50 hours, then maybe that's something, worth making more secure. All right. So let's actually get into this comic. So who here has seen this comic before? Also, let me send y'all a link of this comic so you're able to pull it up on your screens. Just a second. Okay. Cool. Well, I'm glad there's some people who have heard it for this first time. Here is the comic link. So go ahead. You're welcome to pull that up and stuff. So basically, this is an example of a very basic password. It says trouble door with an ampersand and 3, right? So we have some things that are surprisingly not common, right? So you might think, oh, like I've used this word. It seems not very common, but substituting an O or for a 0 or a 4 for an A are actually very common things for people to do. So really, that whole common, that whole like word that you might think is, looks like a preschool exam paper. Yeah, this is their style of art for these comics. I personally really like them, because a lot of them seem very nonsensical, but a lot of them also have good scientific information that academics will often even debate. And so it's definitely, if this is your first introduction to these comics, I definitely recommend checking out some of their comics. I genuinely find them funny and fun, and sometimes I learn some cool things from them, things I wouldn't expect to learn from a comic. Uh, so yeah, so a word like this is actually um, uh, uncommon, but those are very common substitutions to have. It's good to include different capitalization, or to have like substitutions. You can add more complexity to a password like this by adding more characters, maybe. Um, so here we have, the ampersand and the three. Um, so those are like, you know, things that you could switch around, and make those uh, orders different, right? So you could switch some of these things around, and it could potentially add complexity. Um, but overall, this is kind of not the hardest password to guess. I'm curious. I would actually, since we now know that passwordmonster.com is a thing, we're going to add this password into the thing. Into passwordmonster.com, and I'm actually very curious to see how easy it would be to guess this. That's actually kind of a strong password. It would actually take 46 years to crack that password. So it's not terribly, according to passwordmonster.com, it's not a very easy password to guess. According to this comic, and there are people who debate this comic, so keep that in mind. There are debates on the idea of entropy within this comic. I think that would be valuable for probably another discussion. But the idea of entropy is looks like leet speak to me. The idea of entropy is the idea of randomness. How easy would it be to guess a password like this? According to this comic, it would take about 3 days if you were to do 1,000 guesses a second, which you'd need kind of a powerful system to do that, but it's not impossible. So it's definitely something that could be doable with the right intention and right things. But also it would be hard for someone else to remember this password. Like if I had, 20 passwords, not similar to this, but along the same lines of trying to use this idea, it might be kind of hard for me to remember. I think it personally would be, because I'd be like, oh, well, was there, where was the O, and which O did I substitute as a zero? Or, where did I add the ampersand? And what was the word, right? So, while that password could be a little bit easier for a computer to guess, but hard for a human to remember, XKCD has the idea that if you move from past words and think about past phrases, if you were to move from past words to past phrases, those words would be harder to guess. So if we were to use correct, horse, battery, stable, which are 4 random words in the English dictionary, that really don't seem to have very much correlation to them. Now, you could remember that if you were to, think of that in a certain context, especially if you were to make it memorable to you in some sort of way, if you chose like 4 words that you could remember. Let's put that in to Password Monster and see how long it would take to guess. That would take 13 million years to guess. And by the way, each word has a space in between. So it's correct, space horse, space battery, space stable. And that would take, according to Password Monster, 13 million years to crack. So definitely a lot stronger than the first password, but also easier to remember than the first password, right? Um, so the idea is that we create passwords that are easy for humans to remember but hard for computers to guess. And basically, this comic says, through 20 years of effort, we've successfully trained everyone to use passwords that are hard for humans to remember but easy for computers to guess. And that just goes back to the idea of information theory and entropy in the realm of computer security. Um, and although we're not going to go into extreme depth about entropy and information security or information theory and security, those are concepts that have influenced this comic overall, and the idea of using an XKCD password. Um, so, uh, basically, a few things. Um, yeah, so basically a few things with this. For the XKCD password generation, uh, generally the schema is that the attacker might even know or assume the way that we're generating some of our passwords, but they're not going to be able to very easily guess the passwords that we're generating. Cool. So again, the idea and the methodology behind this is we want to create passwords that we want to focus on. Let's see. I'm reading a comment. Okay, correct for Spanish staple, 65 years. 4 billion years. Correct. It's all right. So what I understand from this comment is that by spelling differently, battery staple, okay. So yeah, so you're adding a word to the correct horse battery staple. And if you change, so if you change the spelling or change, whether you're using an English or a British accent to spell out some of the words, yes, that can also create a variety of how long it takes to guess some of those passwords. That is interesting. Thank you. So we want to focus on using passphrases, not passwords. So if you can use words that might be unrelated with a mixture of characters, XKCD, they generally suggest if you can use 4 words with 20 characters overall in your password to provide the strength, that's a pretty strong password. That's a good password, and it's probably not going to fail you. It's definitely a different way of making passwords. You could obviously, make other passwords, make other types of passwords, and still make them strong. But I do think that this is a good concept to making passwords, especially if you're just looking to make stronger passwords. It's something you could also use in industry. Say that you're creating, and I actually did this for a company that I was working at. I made a password generator using the XKCD password library for when we were creating user accounts. If a user were to create an account, we'd give them a dummy password, and we would give them passwords that would be generated through this password generator using the XKCD library. And they were strong passwords, and they were, you had them follow a certain length and include certain types of delimiters and things like that, maybe changing a couple of characters, just misspelling something ever so slightly. And that makes a really good password. So it's definitely something I recommend checking out if you're looking to build stronger passwords. And so we talked about entropy very briefly, but yes, entropy is making sure that you're including randomness in a password, and this basically makes your password stronger. Entropy is basically a way to measure the like the complexity of your password and how long it would take for someone to guess your password, right? So you want to make sure that you can try to include some unpredictability and complexity, which would increase your entropy. And then this idea of nonsensical but memorable. I really like this idea because it's different than what you think of when you think of using a password manager, where you're saying, okay, like my password manager is going to it's going to be a strong password, but it's going to be something that I could never remember. Like it's just a mixture of letters and numbers and different capitalizations and things like that. So if I'm trying to use that password for like the 5 things that I access the most, maybe those random passwords aren't the best fit for me because I'm not going to want to maybe use, a LastPass is what I use. I wouldn't want to use that on every single one of my devices, trying to access like the 5 most common applications or websites that I might be accessing, where I do require myself to log in regularly. So it's good to have a password that might sound kind of crazy to someone else, but you can remember it, right? Because then it gives you the ability to log out and access your accounts very easily, but no one else is going to understand it and it's not going to be very memorable to them. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to get our hands dirty into building a password generator. I think we're getting close to the 50 minutes, so I think this might be a good time for everyone to take a break. I think my leg could use a break, so I'm going to just let my leg breathe for a moment, and then we will come back. So something to do, let's take about 5 minutes. And in the 5 minutes, something to do would be if you want to go ahead and clone that repository, if you haven't already, just get that set up on your local environment. And honestly, you could clone the repository, just have it in a directory. I'm going to use PyCharm. I prefer the JetBrains IDEs, so I'll be using that. But you can, if you're a terminal person, if you like VS Code, just have it set up to whatever you feel most comfortable with. You can honestly run this. It's simple enough to run from the terminal itself. So you could honestly use like Python 3 with the file name and run it like that, and that will be just fine if you're looking for a very simple setup. But if you have a way that you want to set up a virtual environment and things like that in your IDE, then this would be a good time to have that set up. But yeah, and everyone has access to the GitHub, I hope, but I will drop the link in here again in case for anyone who joined a little bit later. So go ahead and you can go ahead and clone that repository there. And we will circle back around in about 5 minutes. I'm really excited to get into this with you all. So yeah, see you in about 5 minutes. Hey everyone. Did you have a good break? Get some water, maybe walk around and stretch a little bit. Hi. Cool. Is everyone set up? Let's see. I like that. Hello. Good to see you all back. Cool. Good. So if you all are set up, had enough water. Yeah. I did get some water. It was good. Alrighty. So I'm going to add this to the stream. Is that visible enough for you all? Let's see. This bigger. Let's see, can I do? Are y'all able to see this okay? I feel like it could be bigger. Give me a sec. Let's see. I might have to go to settings and change the appearance there. Yes, I can make my font size bigger. Let's do 35. Try that. Let's see how good that goes. Let's try. This one looks much bigger. Oh, I see. Let's see. Nope. Okay. I think I have to be in presentation mode to make my font bigger for y'all. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let me go into presentation mode again. Yes, okay, that works. Cool. %. Okay. There it is. Cool. Okay, so that's a lot bigger. Let me know if that is better for y'all to see. Yeah, so that's a good question. Where should you open your .py file? You can honestly open it up in, you could open it up in your terminal if you would like. I am using PyCharm here. You could open it up in VS Code. Wherever you're comfortable running the file and editing it is where I would suggest opening the file. For me, that happens to be in this particular ID. I hope that helps. It's just a Python file that we'll be editing and running, so you should be good to very simply open it up wherever you're able to run the file. For those of y'all who do have this running or just opened, so if we look at this file, this is a very basic file that I've created here. So something you are going to need in order to run, in order to actually run these files, you are going to need xkcd pass. So you can do a pip install. So I type in that is something you're going to need in order to, that's a dependency to actually run this. So I would go ahead and install that. Something that you will need. Let me know if anyone's having any issues with that or anything. We can address those. But we're going to take a look at this file overall. So we are using the xkcd pass. Also, if you want to look at some of the documentation for this, here's what I suggest taking a look at. It'll give you an idea of the references of the actual community that works on this password generator, and I've included their GitHub link there. Honestly, you can install xkcd pass straight onto your terminal and use it through there. So if you were to do it like that, you can just type in, like, into your terminal, type in xkcd pass, and it would give you a certain number of passwords, right? So you could do it straight from the command line if you really wanted to. But the way that we're going to do it, we're actually going to use it within this Python file. And this is the base. So what this basically does, if we run this file, I'm going to run it here, and you'll see that I have welcome to the password generator inspired by xkcd's comic. And then this gives you the output of your comic. So every time, or of the password generator. So every time you run this, the way I currently have it set up is it will give you a 4 to 6 word password with delimiters separating each word currently. And the things that we can change would be the types of delimiters we want to use. So these are some of the delimiters that we can use right now. So we'll have an exclamation point, @ symbol, underscore, space, commas, and things like that. And we do want the range of each of the words to be between 4 to 6 letters. So you can see that all of these will fit that. You have a 6-letter word here, you have a 5-letter word here, 5-letter word here, and then 6-letter word here. So all of your words will be anywhere from 4 to 6 words, and you will have 4 to 6 words in length for the password as well. So let's run this again, and we'll be able to see that this is our new password. So every time you run this, you'll get a password. Let's actually check the strength of this because I'm just curious. And when we put this into Password Monster, it would take 200 trillion years to guess this password right here. According to Password Monster. So how cool is that? So how you would run it, yes, okay, so if you are getting this error, it's because you need to install xkcd pass. I would do that using this. So you're going to need to install, you're going to have to do a pip install before you actually run the file so that you have, so you can actually use xkcd pass, which we've imported into this file. Yes, in the terminal. Yes, you'll run that in the terminal. Did other people get that working? Were you able to run this file on your end? Okay, great. That's good. I'm glad. Great. Good. Perfect. Okay, so some of the things that we can do with this will be we can change the length that we want these passwords to be, maybe how many characters we want each of the passwords to use. We can also change the delimiters that we want to use. Like say one of the delimiters we want to add in here, one I didn't think of at the time that I was making this, I'd probably want to add an asterisk. I think that might be a good delimiter. Let's see. Command not found. Okay. Are you using what system are you on? Anuvob 72. You're on Mac. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. That should work. Yeah, so the file that we're running would be, it's called passwordgenerator.py. In the repo, that's the file that we're actually running. On your system, are you able to so pip is the command, pip is not found. Let's see. Anyone have an idea of what might be going on there? Let's see. Let me look up what might be going on. Yeah, you could try that. -m, that might help. Do you have Python installed on your system? That might be something to check. And also for me, I would probably use Python 3 because that's you have Python installed. Make sure that when you're running this command, if you have Python 3, use Python 3-m. And if you have Python, then you can use that as well. I don't use curl very often, but maybe this might also work. Cool. Yes, this is a good resource to use. Let me see. Are you able to click on that link, Anubhav? I think that'll be a good link to check out. What are you running this on? Do you have Python 3? That might be why you're seeing that. I would check the version of Python that you have running. So do Python space dash dash version. This is what I would type in, Python space version, so that you're able to see the version that you have, and then make sure that you use the right version. Let me just keep that up there for you. Hopefully that works. Okay, there's a version problem you mentioned. Okay, good. Good. Okay. Hopefully you're able to fix that version problem. Put anything in the chat when you find out more, or need anything else, and then we can take a look at that. So for those of y'all who do have this running, hopefully you've been looking at the file and have an idea of generally how we're using this. So some of the things that we're using, we do have a Word file that we're using that has a list of words in the English dictionary. Really, that's used through this import that we're doing of XP. So we can access a Word file and generate a list of words through that. So that's how we're actually getting some of these words, and we're storing it into this variable called my words. And then you'll see that being referenced throughout the file itself. So we're going to have this list that's generated of words. I'm calling that word v1. And then we're basically adding, we're basically taking the words that we have, and then we are choosing a random delimiter so we have the list of delimiters. If you were to look up here, this is our list of delimiters, and we're randomly choosing one of these. We're indexing one of the values within the delimiter list, and then we're choosing a delimiter at that value. And we're starting at the index 0 for the index that we're using to access the list. And then we're basically joining those words with all of the words and then the delimiters themselves. And then that's where you'll see we're going to join the words, and then we're going to use the strip function, which basically I have a comment right here, which is basically going to join the strings of words together into a single string. And then we will get that one string long password like this. So this has each of our words, and then each of the random delimiters that we chose. And then we have it all as one word. Cool. Okay. So a functionality that I think would be good to add. Now you may or may not want to use this as, you may or may not want to generate a new password with your own sort of tools, or just you might not want to customize a password every time. You might just want to continue with like this default generation of the password. And if you're trying to do that, this basic setup is all you need, and you can use that. But we will include something that will give us the option to customize our password. So something I think would be good to add here would be we could definitely add something that allows us to customize the password. Maybe we'll ask the user for some input. So maybe something to do here might be, say we call a variable called customize, where we ask for the user input and we say, would you like to customize parameters for your password? And let's think about some of the things that we could accept. It might be good to accept yes, all lowercase, a Y, or capital YES, I think, as an input. I think that'd be good. So type yes, or type enter. I think press enter. Enter to continue with generation. It's very long, but maybe we should slow down. Okay, and so basically we're going to ask the user for input. I like to run things as I'm going along, so this is what the output of that would look like. Would you like to customize parameters for your password? Type yes or press enter. So let's type, we're just going to type enter, and then it'll give us our password. And we haven't finished the functionality for yes, so something I think would be good to add here would be the things that we're accepting as parameters. So let's see, let's call it proper input yes. Okay, so these are all the inputs that we would accept for yes. Lowercase yes, we would accept y, and we would also accept yes. Okay. So say that the user actually gives us the proper input. So if we're using customize here, so if this variable customize, if the input that we get, the input is going to set this variable, right? So if what customize is in our proper input yes, let's just do a quick print statement here that says input is yes to customize. Okay, and let's see if that works. Let's run that real quick. Down here, let's type in, oh, sorry, I press enter. So that works. And then let's type in yes, all lowercase, and then the input is yes to customize, right? Right now, I do still have this generating, which is fine. We'll just leave it for now. Let me go back into this chat and see if there's any questions or anything. So you installed the latest version, Anuvab 72. You installed the latest version of Python. Is that? Yes, I would try to reload the window. And yeah, definitely reopen the terminal. That would definitely help. But I would also Do you know what version of Python you've installed? That might be good to know. Does anyone have any other questions so far? Okay. Cool. I think we're good so far. So we've got this input that we're accepting, right? So we're allowing the user to customize. What are some things we want customized, right? So let's see. We could let them choose password length. We could let the user choose character length, and we could let them choose the delimiters that they want, maybe. Let's start off with password length. So this would be how many words they want inside of a password. So let's say we want to say we could say, okay, let's have a parameter that says user input. So we will get the user input and we will ask them choose the parameters you would like to set. And then let's say we'll have them type done or D to complete. Enter, let's say, the letter D to complete. Let's actually I'm thinking out loud, so give me a second. Let's do a new line character here. Let's say we give them the option to enter password. And that's what we're doing right now. So that's the one option we're going to have right now. Let's see. And then we should also include the proper inputs that we're taking in. Proper input for done. We'll accept D. Accept D. We'll accept done, and we'll accept done. Right. So those are the things that we'll accept there. So once we have the user input, while the user input is not in proper input done, so while they have not selected that they're done, depending on what their input is, right now the only input that we have is we're allowing them to choose the number of words that they want to use. So if the integer, because their input is going to be, we haven't casted it as an integer, so it's going to come in as a string, so we'll cast it as an integer. If the user input is a 1, and we're going to assume that the user is going to give us the correct input of 1, then we're going to be in this case where we'll choose the word length. Oh, also I'm getting this word length variable from up here. Right now we have it randomly generating from 4 to 6, unless if, in this case, if the user is going to give us a certain number of words that they want to use. So if they were to choose a certain number of words, we would just update this variable. Instead of it being a random 4 to 6, it would be the number that they actually select. So we would pass that as an integer and do input, and then we allow them to enter the word length. And we're going to assume that the user is going to give us an actual number that we can cast to an int. So we're gonna trust the users and say, okay, the user is actually going to give us something that makes sense and not any sort of nonsensical data. Let me move back here to see what's going on. Let's see. If it's not working in VS Code, something I would suggest to do is maybe you could try running it in the terminal itself. I would try to go into that directory, especially since you're on Mac. You could use, just go into the terminal and go into that directory and try to run it from there, since it looks like you already have Python 3 installed. Yeah, it looks like you have Python 3 installed from this comment that you have up here. So I would suggest try to just go into your terminal and do it from there. Yes. Yeah, and if you haven't already, then you are going to need to install, using Python 3, use pip install xkcd pass. Yep. And if it's not working in VS Code, I would suggest trying it in terminal, because for something like this, since we're only really working with one file, you're probably going to be good to just run it on the terminal, and it won't be too crazy. Maybe you could still use VS Code. Oh, great. Okay, so it's showing for you. Okay, if pip install is not working, try Python 3-m pip install xkcd pass, and maybe that'll work. But something you could do, if you do prefer to edit files in VS Code, you could edit your file, open it up in VS Code and edit it there, but maybe have a separate terminal open so that you can run your code in the separate terminal. And I think that would be good. But yeah, so we are here. We're going to allow the user to enter a word length. And that's basically going to update the word length that we're actually going to use to generate these passwords. So we're already at the bottom going to generate this password. It's going to just update this word length that we put into the generation, right? So let's see how this is running right now. So if we run into anything, then we can update that. Looking at PyCharm, it looks like we don't have any crazy errors or anything. We have these 10-week warnings or whatever, but they probably are okay for us to run this. So I'm going to go ahead and type in yes. So we did have that, statement that tells us that we are customizing it. So input is yes to customize. We're obviously going to get rid of that at the end. But we can go ahead and enter our password length. Let's say we want this password to be only 3 words. Okay. So we choose 3, and then say we choose that we're done. Okay. So it looks like we're in a little loop right there. So let's stop that. Let's figure out what's going on. Oh, I think it has something to do with how we're inputting. Okay. We are taking the user input here, but we're really taking 2 separate user inputs. So let's do this. Yeah, okay. So here's an idea I have. What we could do here, we could print out this statement separately. So we'll allow our users to do this separately. So they're able to choose the parameters they'd like to set, or enter D to complete. And then we'll have our parameters printing separately. So let's do another print statement here with our for now we're just doing password length, so we'll just have that be here. And then our user input is just going to be whatever this input is, right? So the user could have inputted either D to complete, or they could have inputted 1, right? So if they've if the user input is D, then we're not going to execute this code here. But if it's not, if it's anything else, if it's 1, then we are going to try and execute this, right? So let's try that, and I think that will work a little bit better. Let's run this, and then we can say this here. And then you can enter the password length. So we're going to enter 1 because we do want to update the password length. And then it asks us to enter the password length, so that the print statements and getting the user input like that did work. That was good. So let's do, I wanted to do a password with 3. It's going to be a weaker password, but let's just see that it works. Okay, so now it has updated that, but it's not asked us it has not asked us to select D, so that's a problem. So we need to be able to enter that we're done after that. Let's see. Maybe inside of this we could, let's see what's going on here. Yes, there is a Git repo. Okay, so and Bob, you were able to install xkcdpass. Great. Let's see. There is. Okay, so now are you able to run it successfully? Oh, okay. And to run it, you will. Are you doing this from the terminal, or are you doing this in VS Code? If you're doing it from the terminal, you could honestly just type in Python 3 with the file name, because you do have Python 3 installed. I saw earlier, so you could do. And if you've kept the file name the same, you could just do this. You could run Python 3 password generator.py, and that should run the file for you, and that should be good. Let's think about how we should do this. So we're going to run into like a little loop here with validating whether we would like to update the password length or whether we'd like to complete. So we need to update our user input somewhere in here. We could try to, let's see. There's no output in VS Code or in terminal of VS Code. If you are running it on VS Code and you're not getting an output, it might be that your environment isn't set up properly. I don't use VS Code very often, so I'm probably less help there. But I would say that since you are running on Mac, I think maybe just running in the terminal itself. Do you have familiarity with running files in just the terminal outside of VS Code? I think that might be your best bet here. Oh, great. Okay, that's awesome. I'm glad you were able to get that running and got the passwords. That's perfect. Nice. That's a good, interesting mix of passwords. That's a lot of words. Sure, of course. I'm glad that worked out for you. It took a while, but sorry, I was kind of going back and forth between coding and then looking at what you were seeing on your end. But I'm glad that works and you're able to get passwords generating. That's great. That's a great place to start. Awesome. Yeah, so anything so far that you all have ideas for how we can change this user input? So currently, the way that we're doing this, we need to validate that when the user chooses to update their password length, and then right after that, they want to be done. Like say you update your password length and you're like, I'm done. We can just, exit this while loop without asking over and over to update this password length that we're doing here. I think something that we could do. What if we try to do cases in here? That might work. Let's see. What if before this, we just have a blank user input? I'm just thinking out loud, so any suggestions or anything that y'all have would also be good. So what we'll do is we'll have this user input just be empty at first. And then we can choose in here, we could update this input. So every time that we're in this loop, we can choose the parameters that we would like to set, or just choose to be done. So we will do I'm sorry, not user input. Let's rerun that. So we say yes. Okay, it doesn't like that. Oh, because we're looking for an integer right there. Oh, but we also don't want this to run if it is E, right? So we're also just going to want this here. Well, I do like the idea of having this outside of this loop. It makes more sense to me. Let's see if there's any questions. Which file has been opened? So we're looking at the password dash generator .py file, and that's the one that we're editing right now. So we are getting close. We have about 19 minutes until the end of the stream. But I did, for this stream, want to get everyone on the same page with having this password generator file downloaded and taking a just some nice. I'm glad that it worked for you too. But yeah, so I wanted everyone to get this file up and running and at least generating like just general passwords. It is in the let's see. So it's in the XKCD. It's in the XKCD password generator directory, and yes, it is. Yes, you can find it in GitHub. It's called passwordgenerator.py. Yep. And it's just going to be, so on GitHub, it's going to be here. Let me pull this up for you. You are all good, yes. I will, here's the file. I think this should work and should open up the file itself. Yes, if you download this file, it will give you the base of being able to run this file. And it seems like you all are still working on the code, as am I. So I think part 2 of this, if y'all are interested in it, we can do part 2 of this to be a continuation of adding functionality into this code and actually making our own version of this password generator. So the functionality that I'm working on right now, and I'm thinking about how we would do some of this user input as we go along with this. So I think a good thing to add would be obviously being able to choose the password length, being able to choose the types of delimiters we want to use, and being able to choose how long we want each of our words to be would be good functionality to add. And I think we could do a stream just focused on adding that type of functionality if you all are interested. So for those of you who are still working on getting this up and running, I think that would be a good way for us to do the second stream. Let me know if you're interested. And I think we can make that happen possibly. Okay, good. I think I would also be interested in doing that with you all. I think it'd be good to add some more functionality to this. So definitely interested. Good. Yeah. So what I will do while y'all want to get this and just take a look at this file. Maybe you want to add some of your own functionality, but we can come back and continue working on this specific file for those of y'all who are interested. And I think that'd be a great way to continue this stream. Yeah, hopefully we can do that sometime in this week, and I will get back to you all about that either through Discord or something of the sorts. But I think we can hopefully make that happen. And we can continue working on this. Cool. Yeah, so right now, kind of in a little bit of a broken state here. So the idea is I am trying to, we have about, let's see. Good. I am glad that you've got this working. Yes, that, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to show that, but yeah, you've got passwords that are generating, and that is great. Do any of y'all have any questions right now while we are, because there's one more slide that I wanted us to look at on the presentation. That is a good sounding password to me. Maybe you could choose to make that memorable. Nice. Do you want to paste your password into the comments? Just the password, hopefully. But that is a good output. I like that. Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad that is working for you now. That is great. I do look forward to doing this, a continuation of this with you all, since there does seem to be interest, and hopefully we can get that scheduled for some time this week. I know we were supposed to do part 1 of this a couple of days ago. I do appreciate you all joining. My foot is a little messed up right now, so we weren't able to do part 1 a couple of days ago, but nonetheless we are here to do part 1, and hopefully we can do part 2 of it sometime during this Global Hack Week if possible. But yeah, so we can definitely come back to this, and I think that would be wise to do. So I am going to switch gears real quick because we're getting close to time. Let's go back to this slideshow. So that was the start of our demo for building this password generator, and I'd love to continue this with you all. But something that was mentioned at the bottom of that comment that we talked about. So yes, through 20 years of effort, we have successfully trained everyone to use passwords that are hard for humans to remember, but easy for computers to guess. So the idea behind what we'll continue to do with this password generator file is going to be, how can we make it so that we're building passwords that might be easier for you to remember, but also harder for computers to guess, comparatively to passwords that you might have been using in the past, or patterns that you might have been repeating in some of your previous password generation techniques, whether that involved a password manager or not. So I do hope you learned something new and had some fun along the way, and we're at least able to get this file up and the base file up and running. And I would like to continue this with you all, and hopefully we can continue learning more about this and actually building out the rest of this password generator, and maybe customizing it to some of the needs that you might have, or just some things that we think are cool to include. So the next time we continue this stream, definitely bring some of the things that you all want to use as customization parameters that we can try to add to this. The ideas that I have include length of the number of words in the password, the length of each of the words within the password, and the types of delimiters that you do or do not want. Like, for example, when we have the list that we had, some websites don't want you to use a space. Other websites don't mind if you use a space. Some websites may not want you to use certain characters that might be in that list. And so, the idea of being able to customize that list might be good. So any questions that you all have, I'm happy to answer here. But I just want to say thank you for joining. I've had a lot of fun. And until next time, hopefully next time is sometime during this Global Hack Week. And yes, my Twitter handle, I don't use it very often, although I would like to. I will type it in right here. It is at the Alina. This is my Twitter handle. You are welcome to follow along. I used to retweet some of the posts that we would do on MLH's channel for hackathons that I would be at and things like that. And so that's primarily what I was using it for, although I have not used Twitter in a while, but maybe I will be a little bit more active on there. Awesome. Thank you. And yes, of course, I'm glad we were able to kind of walk through and digest some of the code. Hopefully you have a better idea of it. And if you want to work on this individually as well before we do the continuation, feel free to. Hopefully you have a better idea of that. I am happy to post my LinkedIn. Let's see. Here it is. And you're all welcome to connect with me on there. And yeah, so thank you so much. Yes, I will try to see if we can get this continuation going, and maybe it'll be sometime this weekend. So just keep uh, an eye out for that, and I hope you will be rewatching the recording. I'll add more stuff to the GitHub for y'all. Yes, thank you, MLH. Also, we have things going on all week for Global Hack Week, not just this. So make sure to check out the rest of our schedule for today and for the rest of the week. And the thing that we have going on next, let me pull up and I'll give you a link to that. We are at day 3 of Global Hack Week. What are some things you are excited to go check out? Oh, we have Wikipedia races happening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Here's the link to register for that. Hopefully y'all are doing some cool challenges and stuff. Let's see, let me... you all can go check in right there to go do the Wikipedia races. That will happen literally right after we get off. And then we have Kev is doing at 8 p.m. is doing a Python 101 part 2 for building and getting started with programming with Python. That should be really good. He's a great teacher. Y'all should go check that out and hang out with him there. I will also be doing GeoGuessr tomorrow. Well, it'll be 11 a.m. Eastern Time for you all. Eastern Time. And don't want to come check it out and maybe hang out on stream with me and play GeoGuessr. So I dropped the link in chat for you all there as well for GeoGuessr. Yeah, I hope to see you all there. So it'll be in less than 24 hours if you all decide to show up there. And then I will try and get some more information out to you all about if we can fit a second session of this password generator stream in for this Global Hack Week. And fingers crossed, hopefully we can. And yeah, thank you all for coming out to this. And be sure to check out Wikipedia races and some of the other things we have going on today. Make sure you're checking in, but also getting sleep and staying hydrated. I know there can be a lot of fun and exciting things happening all weekend. But make sure that you're also, taking care of yourself, taking walks, drinking water, and doing all that good stuff. And yeah, hopefully I will see you very soon. Thank you all for joining. I've had a great time, and I will see you on the other side. Take care. Sure. Thank you for joining. Sure. Take care. Bye. Take care. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Glad you were able to be a part of the stream. That was fun. Take care, everyone. Bye.